Hi, I'm Kensley.
And I'm Alyssa.
And we have another lit case for you guys, as always. We've been going on this infamous serial killers series. Had a little bit of a break, but now we're back to the infamous serial killers.
Yeah, it's been a crazy summer, you know?
It's been wild. We've been busy.
Wild.
Busy people.
Recently, my coworkers listen to this. They've told me. And
hi, coworkers.
Hi, my coworkers. A couple of my coworkers recently have called me out, and they're like, "Okay, Alyssa, you have a problem. You haven't told us that you have a podcast," and and got on my case about it. But it's out there now. Everybody knows.
Yep,
we're part of a podcast.
Surprise!
You've had that problem too a lot.
I know. It's okay.
But I feels like we got big supporters on our side.
Yeah, feels good. Honestly,
shout out to the coworkers for making our lives so much better.
Yes, definitely. All right, so. Not gonna lie, this case is one that literally terrifies me, and I'll just go ahead and do the intro real quick. So this is the case of a man that almost every person has heard of. He is the subject of several movies and TV shows, and his crimes are ones that shook the nation and the world, honestly.
Yeah.
With most people questioning how he could be declared sane. This man has been portrayed by many big stars, including Ross Lynch and Evan Peters, just to name a few.
Ugh.
You're listening to The Ugly Truth, and today we're covering none other than Jeffrey Dahmer.
I'm gonna just say this because I feel like I've been talking a lot already. But though I could only watch a little bit of the Ross Lynch version of the movie.
Really?
I can only watch a little bit of it, and it freaked me out. I just couldn't push through it.
So, okay, for those of you that don't know, the Ross Lynch movie, it's a movie. Evan Peters is a TV show I'm sure many of you have seen, but Ross Lynch's it's called My Friend Dahmer, and it's all about his high school and early life years. So there's not an actual murder in the entire movie, but at the very end, it sets it up to where a murder does happen. But it's still creepy.
It's so creepy.
You get to know his personality a little bit more, and then you have Dahmer with Evan Peters that literally I watched 4 episodes and I was terrified and never finish it, honestly.
And now didn't he swear off of dark roles because of that show? I feel like he had mentioned something.
I don't know if he sweared off of them, but I know it was really hard for him.
He mentioned at least that he needed therapy after.
Oh yeah,
it just messes you up with your psyche of
because you're that person, you're becoming that person.
Oh, so terrifying.
Anyways, it's a doozy, but we'll go ahead and get into it. So on the morning of May 27th, 1991, Milwaukee police responded to an alarming call. 2 women had encountered a naked boy on the street who was disoriented and bleeding. But as the police arrived at the scene, a handsome blonde man approached and assured them that all was well. But that man was the notorious serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer. Dahmer calmly told the police officers that the boy was 19 years old and his lover. In reality, Conorak Synthasompany. That's a wild last name.
Oh my gosh, how many letters is that?
20.
Oh my gosh.
I apologize.
Up,
yeah, I apologize. So he was actually just 14. And he was about to become Dahmer's latest victim.
Oh my gosh.
But the officers believed Jeffrey Dahmer, although the women tried to object. They were told to, quote unquote, shut the hell up and butt out of this domestic dispute.
What?
On their way back to the station, the officers joked about the gay lovers, quote unquote, completely unaware that they had just allowed a murder to happen. And that's a scene in Dahmer that I've seen. And it's this poor boy who's really messed up, and we'll get into that, I think, shortly. But these women are something's going on in this man's apartment and you have to save him. And he's like, no, that's my boyfriend. I'm like, what? At least I feel you have to at least investigate.
I'm sorry, but let's think about this here. Legally, he should have been charged with public indecency, and yet they did nothing.
But it was
the
14-year-old.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
There still, even if he's saying he's 19, there still should have been a public indecency charge.
True.
And then why are we not questioning the fact that he's like not doing well and he's
Right.
walking around naked, fully
Yeah.
naked, with blood all over him? Like, that just doesn't make any sense logically.
Yeah. What did Jeffrey say? Like, oh yeah, we're just into like a blood kink, you know, which I'm sure is a thing. But
I'm sure it is, but sorry, no. No.
Was not the case in this
Pass.
situation.
Pass.
So Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born on May 21st, 1960, to a middle-class family in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. At a young age, he became fascinated with all things related to death and began collecting the carcasses of dead animals. Eerily, Dahmer's father noted how his son was, quote-unquote, oddly thrilled by the sounds of clinking animal bones.
Ew.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Ugh.
And by the time that Dahmer was in high school, his family had moved to Bath Township, a sleepy suburb of Akron, Ohio. There, Dahmer was an outcast who quickly became an alcoholic. He drank heavily at school, often hiding beer and hard liquor in his army fatigue jacket. To fit in, Dahmer would often pull practical jokes, like pretending to have seizures, which is in the Ross Lynch movie.
This is, yes.
He would do this so frequently that pulling off a good practical joke became known around the school as doing a Dahmer.
Oh.
During this time, Jeffrey Dahmer also realized that he was gay. As his sexuality blossomed, so too did his increasingly abnormal sexual fantasies. Dahmer began fantasizing about sexually assaulting men and becoming aroused by the idea of completely dominating and controlling another person.
Oh. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I just don't know what else to say.
Yeah. In this situation, knowing what happened, you're like, no,
Ew.
not okay.
Pass.
As Dahmer's violent fantasies grew stronger, his control weakened. Just weeks after he graduated high school, Dahmer committed his first murder. Jeffrey Dahmer's parents divorced the same year that he graduated high school. Dahmer's brother and his father decided to move into a nearby motel, and Dahmer and his mother continued living at the Dahmer family home. Which, like, obviously that's very hard. Like, you're not even living with your dad, but...
Right. But this was already an issue before any of this.
Right.
So it's
like,
just
I'm pretty sure the murder had already happened, and then his parents got divorced.
Right. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
Can't blame it on that, buddy.
And whenever Dahmer's mother was out of town, he had full control of the house. On one such occasion, Dahmer took advantage of his newfound freedom. He picked up 18-year-old hitchhiker Stephen Mark Hicks, who was on his way to a rock concert in nearby Lockwood Corners. Dahmer convinced Hicks to join him at his house for some drinks before he went to the show. After hours of drinking and listening to music, Hicks attempted to leave, a move that enraged Dahmer. In response, Dahmer bludgeoned Hicks from behind with a 10-pound dumbbell and strangled him to death. He then stripped Hicks naked and performed sexual acts on his corpse.
Ew. Oh my gosh. Jeffrey Dahmer freaks me out.
Dude, he's just hitting all the things. Like, he's just doing it all.
So creepy. Like, ugh.
Then Dahmer brought Hicks down to the crawl space of his house and began dissecting the body. Afterward, Dahmer removed the bones, smashed them to powder, and dissolved the flesh with acid.
What? I'm so sorry. What? Does powder?
You know those like TikTok videos where people grind up things in their little like
Stop!
grinders?
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
But like that's what I imagine.
Insert
and like
the sound effect here.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible. Oh, gross.
Anyways, time for an ad break.
How did I not know?
So Jeffrey Dahmer's murders had begun, but on the surface, Dahmer seemed to be a normal young man who was struggling to figure his life out. He briefly attended Ohio State University, but dropped out after one term due to his drinking. He also served as a combat medic in the U.S. Army for 2 years before his alcoholism became a problem.
What? 2
This
years?
man's an Army veteran, but also necrophiliac. What a concept.
I'm so confused. Like,
oh girl, it just gets more wild.
Why did he was in the Army?
Yeah. Did you watch Dahmer on Netflix?
No, I couldn't.
Okay.
I can't handle it.
Yeah, a lot of this is in there.
It freaks me out.
So for those of you who have watched Dahmer, this isn't anything new, and Alyssa is like shook. So
this whole episode is gonna be Alyssa being like, "What?" And it's just basic information. Anyway.
Also, yeah, I apologize that we're laughing. It's not we're laughing at Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes. Obviously, they're very sad. I get made fun of a lot for laughing in the podcast.
I think it's just
we just like having
to make
fun.
Light.
Yeah. We try to make light of it, and our coping mechanism is laughing instead of crying, and like, you know.
And at this point, there's nothing we can do about Jeffrey Dahmer. We all know about him. And yes, we are sad for the victims, obviously.
But like, this man is just so crazy that it's almost funny.
It's
like,
insane that he got away with what he did. It's
so
the same
long,
thing with Ted Bundy. It's like you're just shook.
Just because you're hot doesn't mean you can get away with murder, dude.
Well, clearly you can. Clearly
for a while,
these men have proven that you can. If
I wouldn't say
enough.
Jeffrey Dahmer was attractive, though.
I mean,
maybe I'm sure people thought
so. They portray him as a very attractive
Ross
man.
Lynch
Ross
Lynch,
yeah.
And, okay,
yeah, like ugh.
Fair enough.
Anyway, tell us your thoughts on Ross Lynch in the comments.
We'll have a Q&A.
Yeah,
tell us what you think about Ross Lynch.
Please,
rate him 1 to 10. No, I'm just kidding.
That's important.
This episode. So after being honorably discharged from the army, he returned to his grandmother's house in West Alice. Same. How was he honorably discharged?
If you're an alcoholic, you get honorably discharged?
Yeah, I guess like you didn't like betray your country. You just like have an issue. And like, because maybe they think of alcoholism as like an ailment, you know, which it kind of is, like a disease. That's my best guess, to be honest. Anyway,
figure this one out.
So he returned to his grandmother's house in West Alice, a suburb of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it would later come to light that Dahmer had drugged and sexually assaulted 2 other soldiers.
What?
At that point, how is that?
How are you still getting an honorable discharge?
I have no clue.
Was this after he was discharged they find this out?
Probably.
But they can take away your honorable discharge.
Yeah.
They can take it away and change it.
When was this? 1987? So.
They can change.
Different time.
As far as I know, they can change it to dishonorable.
Yeah, I would imagine.
You know, you betray your country
or
a terrible person.
Or you like sexually assault someone. Yeah.
Anyway.
As a civilian, Dahmer's violence continued. He committed numerous sex crimes, including pleasuring himself in front of children and drugging and sexually assaulting men at gay bathhouses.
My God.
In September 1987, Dahmer escalated back to murder when he killed 25-year-old Stephen Toomey. Dahmer met Toomey at a bar and convinced the young man to go back to his hotel room with him. Dahmer later claimed that he had just intended to drug and sexually assault the man, but awoke the next morning to find his hand bruised and Toomey's bloodied corpse underneath his bed. He was like, I was just planning on raping the dude.
Oh, just cash. You know, it's casual Friday night.
But it just like, I woke up and he was dead, dude.
How you think that's gonna get you out of murder, buddy? Like, I don't think that's how this works.
Be like, you still should get a charge for that. And like, that's like what's crazy about this is he gets away with it. Okay, next, Jeffrey Dahmer's murder of Stephen Toomey was the catalyst that sparked Dahmer's true killing spree. After that heinous crime, he began actively seeking out young men at gay bars and luring them back to his grandmother's house. There, he would drug, sexually assault, and kill them. Dahmer killed at least 3 victims during this time. He was also arrested for the molestation of a 13-year-old boy. Due to that charge, Dahmer would serve 8 months in a work camp. Still, the idea of killing consumed him. He later said, quote, "It was an incessant and never-ending desire to be with someone at whatever cost. Someone good-looking, really nice-looking. It just filled my thoughts all day long," end quote.
What?
But that doesn't sound like murder. That just sounds like I want someone to love me.
Right, yeah.
But I mean...
also, only 8 months in a work camp?
Yeah, what is that? What even is a work camp?
I don't know, but it doesn't sound like enough
Doesn't sound like enough, yeah. For sure. But murder alone wasn't enough. Dahmer also began to collect grotesque trophies from his victims. This practice began with the murder of a 24-year-old aspiring model named Anthony Sears. Sears struck up a conversation with the seemingly innocent Dahmer at a gay bar. After going home with Dahmer, Sears was drugged, sexually assaulted, and eventually strangled. Dahmer would then preserve Spears' head and genitals in a jar filled with acetone. When he moved into his own place downtown, Dahmer brought the dismembered pieces of Sears with him.
How did the grandma not know?
I don't know.
That's my biggest question here. How did she not know? Did your house not
Yeah.
reek of chemicals
So,
at least?
I don't know if this is actually how it happened, but in the Dahmer series on Netflix, it has her noticing a smell. And she's like, something isn't going, like, something's wrong. And she goes down to the basement and sees, like, this lab almost. He's hidden the bodies, like, under the house, so she can't find them. But there's, like, dead animals and, like, bones and stuff. And she, like, assumes all the bones are animals. And that's when she, like, calls her son, which is, I think, the son, so his dad, and was like, you need to get Jeffrey out of here. I can't do it. And they're like, get your own place, like downtown, basically. Get your own apartment. And you can do whatever you want, basically.
Interesting.
So over the next 2 years, Dahmer committed the bulk of his 17 murders. He would lure young men back to his home, often offering them money to pose nude for him before killing them. Like he would pose as a photographer, basically.
Oh.
As Jeffrey Dahmer's murders continued, his depravity deepened. After taking photos of the corpses and dissolving their flesh and bones, Dahmer would regularly keep the skulls of his victims as trophies. He also began experimenting with various techniques to preserve these grisly mementos. He once even accidentally exploded the head of one of his victims, Edward Smith, when he tried to dry it out in the oven. Yeah, that's enough said, honestly. There's not even words to say.
My gosh. Could you imagine going into his apartment after all of that?
No. Like when he finally got caught.
Yeah.
Absolutely
bad.
not.
It must reek in there.
Yeah,
like it
no
has
idea.
to.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably
Oh
does.
my gosh. Anyway.
And around the same time, Dahmer began to dabble in cannibalism, which is what we all know him for.
I always forget about this. I don't know how. I always forget that he was a cannibal.
That's what you forget about?
Yes.
The most, like,
I know.
key part of this whole thing.
I always forget Jeffrey Dahmer was a cannibal. I'm like, oh yeah,
he's a cannibal, necrophiliac.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
Murderer, he's all the things.
He's all the things.
So he kept body parts in the refrigerator so that he could feast on them later.
Ew.
But even that wasn't enough to satisfy. Dahmer had sickening urges. He also began drilling holes into the heads of his victims while they were drugged and still alive. He would then pour hydrochloric acid onto his victim's brain, a technique that he hoped would put the person in a permanent, unresistive, and submissive state. He attempted this procedure with numerous victims, including the guy that we first talked about, the 14-year-old boy, that I can't pronounce his last name.
Oh.
That's why, along with being drugged, the boy was unable to communicate with the police and ask for help. So, like, literally, he, like, drilled out a piece of his brain.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, Dahmer's most violent fantasies had slithered from nightmares to reality. But he hid it well. His parole officer didn't suspect a thing. And Jeffrey Dahmer's victims often didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. On July 22nd, 1991, Jeffrey Dahmer went after 32-year-old Tracy Edwards. Like he did with many of his victims, Dahmer offered Edwards money to pose for nude photos in his apartment, but to the shock of Edwards, Dahmer handcuffed him and threatened him with a knife, telling him to undress. Dahmer then taunted Edwards, telling him that he was going to eat his heart. Dahmer placed his ear against Edwards' chest and rocked back and forth. Terrified, Edwards attempted to appease Dahmer, telling him that he was his friend and that he would watch TV with him. While Dahmer was distracted, Edwards punched him in the face and ran out the door, escaping the fate of becoming another one of Jeffrey Dahmer's murder victims. And that's also in the show. Like, it's like pretty quick in the series. It shows this guy like escaping, and then it goes until like before the murders, because this was like the last guy he could have murdered.
Oh,
and he escaped. Yeah. So Edwards flagged down a police car and led the officers to Dahmer's apartment. There, a policeman discovered photos of dismembered corpses, which were clearly taken in the same exact apartment that they were now standing in. The officer that retrieved the photos said, quote, "These are for real," end quote, as he handed them to his partner. Though Dahmer attempted to resist arrest, he was quickly detained. Upon closer inspection of the apartment, the police found 4 severed heads in the kitchen and a total of 7 skulls, many of them painted. In the fridge, they found numerous body parts, including 2 human hearts. In the bedroom, they found a 57-gallon drum and quickly noticed an overpowering odor emanating from it. When they looked inside, they found 3 dismembered human torsos dissolving in an acid solution. The apartment was filled with so many human body parts that were stored and arranged with such care that the medical examiner later said, quote, "It was more like dismantling someone's museum than an actual crime scene," end quote.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Ugh. Ugh.
Yeah, so Dahmer was
Chills.
arrested, thankfully, and it didn't take long for him to admit to all 17 of his murders. But despite his unspeakable crimes, Dahmer was found to be sane during his 1992 trial. Some disagreed with the declaration of sanity, including at least one other serial killer, John Wayne Gacy.
John.
I feel like you're not one to speak on sanity,
Good old
but
John.
yeah. So when he was asked what he thought of Dahmer, he said, quote, "I don't know the man personally, but I'll tell you this. That's a good example as to why insanity doesn't belong in the courtroom. Because if Jeffrey Dahmer doesn't meet the requirements for insanity, then I'd hate like hell to run into the guy that does." End quote. Which is true, honestly.
I do agree with John. I think that's probably the only time I will ever
with John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Wayne. Because there have been people that have been charged with insanity for way less.
Right.
And it's absurd that he didn't get charged with
But, like,
insanity.
I wonder, I should look into this, honestly, and we can maybe do an episode about, like, sanity stuff and insanity stuff. But I wonder, like, what are the requirements for an insanity charge? Because, like,
yeah,
you'd have to clearly, like, they have to do tests, right? They do several psychological tests, and you have to be like, okay, something is wrong. Like,
right. And how is something not wrong with a person that is willing, first off, to kill somebody, second off, to eat their body parts and dismantle them and keep their, like, it's just
like, as trophies, yeah.
Right. I feel like for me that's an automatic, yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So during Dahmer's trial, he pled guilty to 15 of the charges against him and was given 15 life sentences plus 70 years. He would spend the next 3 years imprisoned at Wisconsin's Columbia Correctional Institute, where he would be interviewed by the media multiple times. Unsurprisingly, he quickly became infamous as one of the worst serial killers in modern history. During his time in prison, Dahmer had constant thoughts of suicide, but he would never get the chance to take his own life. On November 28, 1994, a fellow inmate and convicted murderer named Christopher Scarver beat Dahmer to death with a metal bar in the prison bathroom. According to Scarver, Jeffrey Dahmer never fought back nor made a sound during the attack, but instead appeared to accept his fate. Dahmer's mother told the Milwaukee Sentinel soon afterward, quote, "If he'd have had a choice, he'd have let this happen to him. I always asked if he was safe, and he'd say, 'It doesn't matter, Mom. I don't care if something happens to me.'" End quote. And Joyce Dahmer then asked after he was killed, quote, "Now, is everybody happy? Now that he's bludgeoned to death, is that good enough for everyone?" End quote.
Wow.
It's just like so, I don't know.
It's not the ending you want. You want justice. You want...
Right. And, like, in a way, like, I understand how people could say it as justice, you know?
Right.
But, like, he only, like, 3 out of the, like, 3 days, or, no, 3 years or something, out of the 70 years times, like, I don't know. Wait, 70 years plus 15 life sentences, so, yeah.
I also forget about that part a lot, that he got bludgeoned to death. Like, that part just doesn't...
And it's crazy, like, you think about, like, that does happen in prison. Obviously,
often.
They try to prevent it more now, but, like, people like that, especially considering, like, This is another killer, basically. This is another guy that's, like, super evil, obviously, who killed Jeffrey Dahmer. And, like, that's, like, it's the same thing with, like, pedophiles. Like, people hate pedophiles, and, like...
the thing is, it's a known fact that, I mean, honestly... I am gonna maybe get myself in trouble here, but
oh, no.
I don't disagree with the people that, like, are harsh towards pedophiles in prison,
right?
Because they're children.
Like,
it's ruining a child's life, and and there should be consequences for that. And there's many people, it's a known fact that in prison, if you're a pedophile and you go to prison,
It's a good chance someone's going to come after you.
It's basically a death sentence.
Yeah.
Or it's, you're going to be the, because we have all heard a lot about prison, especially being crime people, that there's the higher up people, and you're going to be one of their, like, targets, and you're going to be one of the people that they try to get under their belt to be, like, their...
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I agree with you. I don't think that's, like, too crazy of a thing to say. Like, anyone, even someone that has murdered, like, other people, like, it's just a different level when it comes to kids. Like, even the most evil people can see that. And, like, that's, like, the thing with this guy, Scarver. I don't know exactly what he did. He was another convicted murderer. But it was something about, like, there's sexual assault involved. You're dismembering their bodies. Like, it's just a deeper level of, like, hatred toward a person to be able to do that,
Yeah, and it's absolutely disgusting. Yeah. But I can understand. Like, truthfully, if I was in this situation, I would.
It'd be hard not to want to,
Yeah, it'd be very difficult. You're like, I'm already in prison. What are they going to do? Put me in prison again? Like,
put me in prison for longer when I'm already here for life? Yeah.
Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, fair.
Might as well make it comfy.
Yeah. It's also, like, I don't want to say I feel bad for Jeffrey Dahmer because I don't. But, like, the way that he was like, I accept he just accepted it. And, like he knows. Right. He knows absolutely what he did is awful. And, like...
Right.
And that, to me, is, like, almost kind of proves there is some sanity there. Because you know what you're doing is wrong. You're just choosing to do it anyway.
Right.
And you know that you don't deserve to be living at this point. Because, like, death sentence was probably up on the table if you weren't in Ohio or Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yeah, if he was in Tennessee, Tennessee, you would have been gone. No, but, like, it's like, I get it. Like, I do get the thought process of, like, there was probably a little bit of sanity there, but not enough. Like, I don't know. And, like, maybe we should do an episode, if you guys want, on the psychology, because both of us are studying.
We like psych, dude.
Or,
criminal psychology, dude.
So maybe we could study that of, like, what goes on in a serial killer's brain to cause these kind of things.
That would be super interesting.
Yeah.
I'd be down to write an episode about that. So if anyone's interested, definitely.
Let us know. Well, maybe that will be our poll. We'll do 2. One about
we can do 2. We need 2.
And one about...
So, Q&A on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, Q&A, rate Ross Lynch, or just say your thoughts.
Yeah.
And then I'll try and do, like YouTube comments. Let us know thoughts on...
And, if you guys engage more, we can make more money. And then we can actually start filming our podcast.
Yeah, dude. I have a camera. We're working on getting that all figured out. Yeah. And that is the plan, is to start recording some high quality videos here shortly.
Yes. Because we both...
That'd be lit.
Like, it'd be so fun. It'd be so fun. But you guys are the people you can be like, oh, we watched them and we followed them before they even had video.
Big,
yeah, they were really cool.
Literally. And it's crazy. Like, we've gained like 1,000 listeners every week at this point, and it's crazy. Yeah.
It doesn't feel real.
I
feel like I'm living a fever dream.
Yeah, for real.
To be so honest.
So we can't thank you guys enough, and keep listening, keep sticking through these crazy laughing filled episodes about serial killers.
And if you guys have suggestions, we love suggestions.
Yeah, critiques.
Like, people in our lives constantly are being like, do you know about this case? And we'll be like, oh, no, we don't. And they're like, how? How do you not?
Like, how are you a crime person and you don't know about?
It's a very accurate question, though.
It's like valid question.
I don't know how I don't know about it. Yeah. But if you guys have any suggestions, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, reach out to us. As always, you can follow us on Instagram at pod.theuglytruth. You can also send us emails on Gmail, pod.theuglytruth@gmail.com. We now have a YouTube channel that I'm slowly uploading former podcasts to, but this one will be uploaded as soon as it is uploaded everywhere else.
Heck yeah.
Our handle for that is the Ugly Truth Pod. So yeah.
And I don't know. I'm just excited. I feel like
I know lots of fun things.
Crazy things are happening.
Yeah.
Alyssa's starting college, so just
pray for Alyssa.
Pray for Alyssa. She's stressing.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week for another crazy episode.
Bye.
Bye.